And good morning. This is Gayle Ruzicka. You're listening to K-Talk Radio. Got a great show today. My guest today will be Schlafly Cori, Phyllis's youngest daughter, and we are so happy to have Ann join us today. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Gayle. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, I just am so happy that you could come on today and talk because, our convention is this Saturday and a day-long great convention with so many great speakers. And of course, one of our main speakers for the day happens to be Ann Schlafly Cori. And we're going
Well, I'm honored to be in such a lineup.
Well, we are just honored that you're going to be here because we're going to honor Phyllis Schlafly, my dear, dear friend and our beloved Phyllis. And of course, as I said, Ann is Phyllis's youngest daughter. And so we're actually going to have Ann will be the one that will be sharing information with us. There'll be a video talking about Phyllis, and then Ann, of course, will be sharing Phyllis from the eyes of her daughter. And I just think that's such a great thing, and I'm so grateful, Ann, that you're able to take that time, because I know things are hectic and busy for you right now, and you'll be able to take that time to come and join us at our Eagle Forum convention. So I wanted to have Ann on today to talk a little bit about some of the things, besides just talking about the convention and all the great people that we'll have there, and we're going to go over that list and talk about the people that'll be there. And I want to start out by telling all of you that we have, in fact, extended the discount price of $49 for until tomorrow. We had ran into some difficulties last night, and Marianne, who is Marianne Christensen, that all of you know, who often does this show, didn't have any power last night. So it was there starting yesterday. Lost power because the power pole actually fell down or blew down in her front yard into her tree and took out, all the neighbors' power. And because they had to replace the power pole, she was hours and hours late into the night without any power and not able to work on our convention, because all of our master list and everything was on her computer. So it was quite an evening. We just made that decision last night because we couldn't get things up to date. We couldn't get people registered and doing the things that we needed to do. So we made the decision that we will just extend that $49 discount until tomorrow. So most of your flyers, things that you've seen, says the price goes up to $59 today. We left in the $49 in on the website. So if you go in on the website to register, it'll just come up as $49, and that's what it will cost you. So that's good. But be sure you do it by tomorrow, because the price will go up after tomorrow. Plus, after tomorrow, if you register, it's too late after tomorrow to get lunch also. So please get on there today. It's always nice not to wait till the last minute, but today and tomorrow, be sure you register. That way you'll make sure that you'll get lunch, and you'll make sure that you save $10. And so it's amazing that you can come for $49 for the entire day, and that includes a very nice lunch and tremendous speakers. In fact, Ann can tell you, as I have, we've attended lots of national conventions, and nobody attends a convention for $49.
Yes, that is a bargain price for the speakers you're going to be getting on this day.
Yeah, and a nice lunch in the hotel there is not cheap. So it's a really, really good deal. Just make sure that you sign up. But let's talk a little bit, Ann, about your wonderful mother. I mean, this for me, and this, I want to get a little bit of lead in on this as we have Ann share with us the stories of her mother. But I've been the Eagle Forum president here in Utah for almost 30 years. Before that, and living in other states, I worked with Eagle Forum on the boards there, and attended Eagle Council for how many years? I don't even lost count, 30-some years, but involved with Eagle Forum clear back to the days of AERA. And so I've known Phyllis Schlafly all those years. Once I became the state Eagle Forum president here in Utah, then I started to work very closely with Phyllis, as it was at that time when I could pick up the phone and call Phyllis Schlafly at home, or at the office at any time I wanted. Once she had a cell phone, I had her cell phone number, because that's Phyllis Schlafly. That's how she treats her state leaders. We are very close, and I was one who became particularly close with Phyllis after I had been there for a few years. We talked often. We shared so many things, and I was very comfortable calling her whenever I needed to ask her advice, which was all the time, which was often. And it was even more exciting how Phyllis would call me. And not only call me and discuss issues with me and things, she would call me and ask my advice. That's the kind of person she was. I was always just astounded when she'd call and ask my advice and say, I'm thinking about doing this, or this has come up. What do you think? She treated me with such incredible respect. She was just this dignified, wonderful woman. And so people ask all the time over the years, always were asking, what happens when Phyllis is gone? I couldn't bear that thought. I never had that discussion. I would just always say, well, there'll never be another Phyllis Schlafly. So no, we won't replace.
Well, that's true. There never will be.
No, absolutely. And so talking about who replaces Phyllis, it's really not a word. It's not a replacement that we're talking about. It's going on, but not replacing
Phyllis. Who
Phyllis.
continues the mission of Eagle Forum?
Pardon, I didn't hear that. You cut out for a second.
The point is continuing the mission of Eagle Forum.
Absolutely. And isn't that what Phyllis asked for?
Yes, it is. And what you just mentioned, Gayle, about her accessibility, I think is such a stellar part of the way she lived her life. She was always accessible at all times. And that was one of the things that I certainly appreciated and learned from, but also so many other people. I mean, you could approach her in the airport when she was traveling coach. You could call her at her home phone number, which was always listed in the phone book. I mean, she would always answer her own phone, and I think that availability was one of the keys to her successful life.
That is the most amazing thing when you talk about she always answers her own phone. That was probably all those many years ago when I first became the state leader here in Utah was the biggest shock. Calling her at home, she picked up the phone and answered the phone and talked to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
it was at any time, and she loved answering the phone.
It was just
amazing.
It was
not an intrusion for her.
I know. It was the most amazing thing, and the conversations that you could just call her up and ask her anything. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of organizations out there. There's a lot of important people out there, and they don't do that. And it's just astounding. I mean, to me, Phyllis, as I always have said, and not just me, but multiple people have said, that Phyllis was truly the Esther of our time. And there was nobody like Phyllis in the conservative movement. And yet there she was, just as, she was my friend. I
think, Gayle, it's also that she understood how the retail nature of life and politics. In other words, you got things done by having whether it was an eyeball to eyeball or a phone conversation with people. You didn't get things done just by writing things in an ivory tower, but actually going out and talking to people and hearing what they were saying and hearing what their concerns were.
That is so true, because especially today where we have every kind of social media out there, so many organizations have either just sprung up or even been long-time organizations, but they have a talking head that does 90% of everything they do online, sending their messages. And I'm not criticizing that. That works very well and for some organizations. And we need those people because they get out a lot of information. But they're not an organization like Eagle Forum.
That's right. The organization like Eagle Forum depends on volunteers, and it's not paid staff, it's volunteers, and volunteers across the country. And volunteers are motivated to work because they believe in the cause, and they believe that the leadership is treating them as right as they're treating the leadership. I mean, it has to be a two-way traffic pattern there.
Well, I've always said that Eagle Forum has been around and lasted so long, all these years, because of Phyllis's vision of strong state organizations. It's the legs of this great organization that she started, and she started from the very beginning, getting volunteers all over the country and setting up chapters in each state.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the other thing she always did it with is a smile. And I think that's the other key to her successful life, is that everything was graciousness, Everything was done with a smile. She always took the high road, and I think that is so admirable.
Oh, I'm so glad you're talking about that, Anne, because that was the most amazing thing about Phyllis. She never tore people down. She didn't tear down her opponents. She didn't tear down other organizations, and she certainly always just encouraged all of her leaders, and always so positive, and taught us to be positive. And it would warn us about not thinking we have to win our battles by tearing down other people.
Well, she liked to always tell me as a child that honey catches more flies than vinegar.
And it worked for her. When you look at the size of her organization and all these volunteers, I look at myself, and yes, I am one of her longtime presidents at this point, but I am not anywhere close to being her longest presidents. I've only been here, the state leader for less than 30 years. And you look at people like Uni Smith, she was 44 years, and plus being involved in other ways. And I mean, I've been with Phyllis all those years. It's just amazing how the people have stayed with Phyllis. I mean, her state leaders just stay with her, because once you get started as a volunteer for Phyllis Schlafly, Phyllis, you know this, Anne. She didn't even understand when somebody would quit for some reason, like maybe they're sick, or something.
No, you're not allowed to.
Yeah,
do
she'd
that.
always say, "I don't understand." Yeah, I don't understand that. She'd say, And she was, but she did that to people. She made you go out, know that you had to go out and get involved. And somebody, said to me not long ago, well, how I can't believe that you're still doing this. I can't believe the hours you put into this, because, hours and hours and hours, not 40 hours a week. It's 70, 80 hours a week, maybe more sometimes.
Well, her energy was incredible. I mean, she could work and work and work and still work even more. I mean, she never let up, and it was such a joy to learn from somebody who said, no, this is not quitting time. We're going to continue working. There's always something to be done.
Yeah, and that's what, that's how she inspired us to do. And so people are always shocked when they find out that we don't get paid. You don't get paid, Gayle. The Capitol, because everybody, if there's a paid lobbyist, they're just so shocked to find out that we're up there every single day. We're there in the morning before the legislators get there, and we don't leave until after they've left at night. And we are just working, and they're saying, "Oh, I can't believe you don't get paid." And I said, "You know what? I wouldn't do this for pay. They couldn't pay me enough money to work this hard and this long."
Well, yes, and it's so much more important to the people you're talking to that you are doing it out of passion and love, and not for a paycheck.
Yeah, and that's what Phyllis didn't go out and hire people to run her state organizations. She hired a few people to run her offices, because they needed to be. But Phyllis never got paid, and it was because she just totally understood the importance of volunteerism, and that the truly dedicated people were the volunteers. People who get a paycheck aren't dedicated usually. I mean, you can get a paycheck and love your job and be dedicated to your work, but it's not the same as if you are a volunteer and you go out and recruit other volunteers. It's kind of hard to go out and recruit other volunteers when you're getting paid.
Yes, there's no question about that, but she had the passion and the drive and the vision to create something, and I think her 92-year life is so admirable.
Oh, it was just amazing. And as people would say to me, "What are you going to do?" I did not want to ever face that. It was like Phyllis would always live. She was so amazing, and her energy right up to the very last minute. Here she was so ill, and had cancer, and was amazing. She was at the Republican convention. I spent time with her multiple times at the convention, enjoying just being with her. And that was the last of July, 1st of August, and a little over a month later, she was gone from the ravages of cancer.
Yes, she was. She had a tremendous force of will and drive. There's no question about it.
And we would have known that. Oh, I mean, it was just interesting even to watch these last few years as she struggled with the cancer. She people didn't even know it because she's so amazing. We need to take a break, Ann, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Broadcasting live from the top of the Rocky Mountains. K-Talk Media. Live, local, two-way. AM 630.
I just met with my CPA and I'm pretty ticked off. He told me that I owe the Obamacare penalty of over $2,000 to the IRS on top of all my other taxes because I didn't have a qualified health plan last year. Andy tells me that the penalty is going to be even higher this year. Luckily, I'm not going to have to deal with that anymore. I decided to opt out of the whole Affordable Care Act, including the IRS penalties. How is that possible? I just heard about a medical cost-sharing organization, and as a member, I'm exempt to the ACA individual mandate and the IRS penalties. I do get to keep my doctor because there are no networks, no HMOs, no PPOs. I can go wherever I like. Best of all, I'm paying a lot less than I was for healthcare. You should check it out too. All the information you need is at medicalcostshare.com. If it makes sense, you can even enroll online. It's so easy. Once again, medicalcostshare.com. I promise you'll be glad you did. Medicalcostshare.com. It's not health insurance. It's better.
Hi, this is Alan Blood with Capital Financial Group. With home values increasing and low rates still available, now is the perfect time to refinance your home. Capital Financial Group, we have loan programs to fit your refinance needs, whether you want to pull cash out from your home, decrease your interest rate and monthly payment, or just reduce your loan to a 15-year payoff. We have programs that will help you refinance even if your income or credit is less than it used to be, or if you're underwater on your mortgage. Instead of getting lost in the shuffle of a big bank or paying high fees at a credit union, call us and we'll help you refinance with the best rates and lowest closing costs for you. You may even qualify for one of our no closing cost loans. Call me today, Alan Blood, at 801-298-5887 to start saving money on your mortgage now. 801-298-5887, NMLS number 3146.
Blizzard warning in effect from 7 p.m. Monday to 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Wednesday. The National Weather Service in Taunton has issued a blizzard.
Are you tired of the cold this winter? Are you prepared for the next blizzard or snowstorm? What will you do when the power and heat go off? That could be our future. Fortress Clothing's Bug Out Bag with our head-to-toe solution is your one-step answer to survival in the cold. It doesn't expire, it doesn't go bad, it's lightweight and mobile, and it doesn't just sit on the shelf waiting for an emergency. You can use Fortress today. Be warm and comfortable. If you or your family work in the cold, be warm and comfortable while you play, hunt, fish, camp, ski, paraglide, go sledding with the family, or just shovel the walks. You will never be cold again. FortressClothing.com is the answer. Your emergency preparedness solution to the cold. Your solution to working or playing in the cold. Visit us at FortressClothing.com and enter Joe, J-O-E. Buy now and receive your 20% off discount. You will never be cold again. FortressClothing.com. It could save your life one day.
And we are back, Ann. And would you share some of the stories? I want everybody to know I went back to St. Louis for the funeral. It was an amazing funeral in the most gorgeous, beautiful, cathedral I've ever been in. I don't think there would be any in Europe that would be any more outstanding and gorgeous.
It's stunningly beautiful. It was built about 100 years ago, and it was built in a Byzantine style, and it is covered with thousands and thousands of mosaics that artisans worked for years to do. It's really, it's a jewel in the city of St. Louis.
I just couldn't believe it. I walked in there. I was so astounded. And there were, over 2,000 people there. It was just so amazing and so beautiful, and the tributes to Phyllis were just so touching. very, very emotional, very emotional. You just sit and sob through the whole thing. It was so emotional because it was life-changing for me. Not like it would be for you as her daughter, but life-changing for me and everything I do, to get my head even on, to a place where I could even deal with and accept the fact that she was gone, because I had just been talking to her, in July, the last of July. There was a point in June and July where I talked to her often. Late at night, we'd have conversations on the phone, and so suddenly, you're like a kid who feels like they're suddenly on their own. You just feel so emotional about how do I not pick up that phone and make that phone call that's always been so important. But the funeral was so amazing, and then a couple weeks later, we were back for another tribute for Phyllis, and just beautiful pictures that were shown, and videos of her life, and especially her Eagle Forum life. When she first started, before she was Eagle Forum, when she was just fighting ERA, when she was out fighting ERA, I could have watched those over and over, looked at those pictures, watched her giving speeches. It was so wonderful and so amazing, and I loved every minute of it. So that's what you're going to do. Why don't you explain a little bit about what you plan to share, a little bit of what you plan to share at the convention, and then just maybe share a couple of fun stories about your mother.
Well, I'm very excited that Eagle Forum has the opportunity to move forward, to continue the vision that my mother laid out. We have so many fabulous state leaders who are part of this, and we have just published our January report, which has been mailed out to Eagle Forum supporters and subscribers and members, and we are continuing the wonderful foundation that my mother set up with this organization, and I invite everybody to join Eagle Forum and join what we're doing. We have a volunteer executive director in Washington, D.C., who is monitoring what's going on Capitol Hill, and although we're very encouraged about what's going on Capitol Hill, we know that they have an ability to engage in mischief also, so they always need constant monitoring. And we're very excited about what the next chapter of Eagle Forum.
I am excited, and I am grateful for Colleen, who is in Washington, D.C., just the information she's been sending out on Jeff Sessions. And maybe after we talk a little bit about what's going on that you're going to be doing at the convention and about your mother, let's also then visit about what's happening with Jeff Sessions.
Well, Senator Sessions, who has been a longtime friend of Eagle Forum and from Alabama, has been nominated as Attorney General, and he's a fine man, and we're fully in support of his confirmation. And there are a lot of people, when you take principled stands, there are a lot of people who want to attack you and say that you're extreme or radical or some such thing like that. But the important thing is that you stand on principle, and Jeff Sessions always has, and he needs our support.
Well, and we, many of us Eagle Forum leaders across the nation signed on to a letter from Eagle Forum in support of Jeff Sessions, asking the senators to be sure and confirm this wonderful man.
Yes, and we'll be sending that out as soon as we finish gathering the signatures today, and sending that out so that all the other senators know that Senator Sessions has a great deal of support among the grassroots. And of course, the grassroots is what Eagle Forum is all about. We're about what the people have to say out in flyover country.
Yeah, that's why I'm Eagle Forum and why I have been Eagle Forum all these 40 years, because that's the kind of organization I want to be part of. I want to be part of an organization that gets things done, and that's always there for me. That Utah Eagle Forum has grown and grown and gotten stronger and stronger because of the support that we have received from National Eagle Forum. And there were, of course, other presidents before I came here, and they too were building Eagle Forum. And we just, because of the way Phyllis had it set up, as we just, each one of us build on what the other one had done, and did things, sometimes do things a little bit different and do it our own way, and because that's what volunteers do, but always following what Phyllis had said. This is how Phyllis wanted it, and this is how we've always done it. And because of that, we have been so successful, because we just don't go off and change things or try to do things our own way. We stick with Phyllis Schlafly's plan. So tell us then,
Gayle,
Ann.
I think, hold on, I think you've touched on one of the keys to my mother's success, and that is she understood the power of the states. A lot of national organizations only look to Washington, D.C. and are only interested in what's going on Capitol Hill. But Eagle Forum has always been interested in what happens in state legislatures. And other organizations don't spend the time and resources to devote so much to the state legislatures. And I think that is what you've done so successfully in Utah and what other states have done. And that is really a key to moving, stopping bad legislation, promoting new legislation. It always starts at the state legislatures.
Well, and that's what we've tried to do. But again, based on your mother's example, when she first asked me to do this, and I was astounded and argued with her and asked her lots of questions and kept giving her other names, and but in the end, that's what she continued to ask me to do. So I did it. But I truly was a child when it came to being in charge. I mean, I've always been a volunteer and worked in politics even since I was a little girl. But this was a new experience for me. But I had your mother, so I was brave. I said okay, and off I went. But it was because she answered her phone that I could do this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I've always thought that one of the really remarkable things about her lifetime achievement was the inspiration she gave to so many women across the country, women who never thought like you, who never thought they could do the kinds of things that you did. Well, she inspired you to go out and do it, told you were going to do it, and you couldn't say no to her, right?
It's just amazing. I'm sure people that I was in high school with are thinking, she's what? She'd do what? Who would ask her to do that? And it was your mother and she would just get inspired and decide who to ask. And when I would say, but this person is smarter than me, and this person knows more than I do, and this person looks better than I do, and I gave her all these excuses, and she would just come back and say, no, you're the one that I've asked to do this, and she wouldn't budge. And
I think, Gayle, she truly understood that people are not born leaders. People are made into leaders. They learn how to be a leader, and that's what she trained people to do, was to learn how to lead.
And truly, if she hadn't have been so open and always there to answer my questions, it didn't take me long to figure out that when I talked with her until toward the end, that they were short conversations, but she could say so much in a very short time. But that's why she could always answer her phone, and that's why she was always there for us, because she knew how to say what she needed to say in a very short time, buoy us up, give us the encouragement we need, follow up sometimes with something in writing or whatever it was. And she was an incredible writer. Oh, nobody could write like Phyllis Schlafly. Nobody could say in a one page what everybody else takes half a book to say. She was amazing that way. And it was all those things that she wrote, those Schlafly reports, with short articles explaining things completely, that gave me the courage to do what I was doing. And I always had a resource. I always had a resource to read, to study, and use to testify, because I was if you do this, you're always in front of somebody testifying. Even when Phyllis would have me come back to D.C. with her for something because of our senators or whoever from Utah was involved, or even testifying before an FDA panel and things, I'm thinking, why am I here? And how did I ever get here? I was just amazed, always amazed, because I had this great leader who never left me alone. She was always there for me.
Yes, the guidance. She always prided herself in her writing that it was more facts in fewer words, which I always thought was great, because she never bothered with the fluff. When people write with a lot of fluff, I call it word salad. You can't get to the meat of it because there's so much salad to work your way through.
Oh, that's so perfect. That's such a great way to describe her. So what are we going to be hearing from you? Just a little bit, just a teaser of some things we're going to be hearing from you on Saturday as you share the life of your mother with us.
Well, I think there's so many wonderful lessons I have learned from my mother. I mean, I've touched on some of them it may seem silly to talk about deportment, but the way she dealt with people and the graciousness she always had, I think is a lesson for everybody to reinforce, because in this age of Twitter, you can easily descend into name calling and all kinds of other things that are that never move the ball forward down the field. And my mother had the ability to keep her eyes on the prize and what was the most essential thing, what was the argument to do, and not be distracted by the personalities or the name calling or the muck, you might say, of politics. But to keep it straight on. And part of the way she did it is because she did it with grace and class and style. And even people who disagreed with my mother 100%, they always said that she had the utmost integrity. And that is something that we can easily lose sight of in dealing with people, is the integrity to say, this is what's right, this is what I believe in, and I'm not going to get into the muck about it. And I think that is a beautiful life lesson.
You know, that very lesson has done more for me than anything else that she ever taught me. And she would, when I say me, to all of us, she would teach us. We would, twice a year we had what we called our president's meetings, and often she'd have people there to give us media training. She always shared with us the kinds of messages that you're talking about. And probably the one thing that people say to me more than anything else, and this is 100% from Phyllis, is that they would come, they still do all the time, people that are my opponents say, you know what, Gayle, I never agree with you, never. But I always respect you. I hear that all the time. I have people that are complete strangers that walk up to me and say, I just want you to know I don't agree with anything you do, but I have complete respect for you because you're out there doing it. And that is the main thing your mother taught us. And often that comes back to just bless us in so many ways. If no other reason, just because they'll treat us with respect and kindness, and that often is really important when you're going into a debate or something. But mostly because, as your mother always pointed out, we never know when those very people will agree with us on something, and we need to be with them.
That is absolutely correct, because she didn't say that, this is, you were always the bad person, because there were issues that you could make agreement with people who were voting against you the rest of the time. But work on the issue, and if you can make alliances across the lines and move your ball forward on your issue, there are all kinds of issues that she found, shall we say, strange bedfellows to agree with her on, and why not? Because if it gets the legislation passed and they'll work with you, that can really be a benefit to our country.
Absolutely. And she made sure that she taught all of us that. And I've watched over the years her state leaders that have followed her advice and have done things the way she does it, are the ones that have been the most successful in their states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. So, there are a tremendous number of lessons to learn from my mother's life, and it was, I'm so fortunate. I always like to chuckle and say, the best thing you can do is choose your parents well.
Yeah. And I remember your father. What a great man he was. I didn't know him very well, but I met him and knew him and just through your mother and what you did very well, Ann. You did very well with your parents.
And they had quite a it was a relationship where each helped each other, and I think my mother had to learn a lot of things along the way. We're not born ready to do this. And my father was an enormous support, an enormous help and guidance to my mother in becoming the kind of politician she ended up becoming.
Well, it would take a very special person to be able to be married to Phyllis Schlafly. And I mean that in the way that her incredible success and her need to be out there. Here she was with this large family, wonderful children, 6 wonderful children. And, God knew to place a man like your father there, a man that was so strong that he could be such help to her and support to her. And,
They were.
It was just
They
amazing.
had a very happy marriage.
But isn't that such an incredible blessing that Phyllis Schlafly, wonderful Phyllis Schlafly, who went out there and did all the things that she did, married somebody who was right at her side, so supportive, and that doesn't always happen. Listen, we need to take another break, and we'll be right back. So we are back, and we had somebody ask a question about how long was your mother without your father. She had all that support all those years. At what point in her life did that change when he was no longer with her?
My father died in 1993, and he was quite ill for 10 to 15 years before that. My mother cared for him at home. He died at home, and she certainly considered it a part of her lifetime commitment to him, that not only that he supported her when she was being able to be active and engaged, but also that she supported him in the final years of his life when he needed so much help and care and love and devotion. And so that was part of the relationship, and part of their beautiful bond. That was a part of it. So after 93, she was then a widow and was able to devote full time to Eagle Forum activities after that.
Well, I remember being at your beautiful home there in Alton, up on the cliff there. It was such a beautiful place, and being out there when your father was still alive but very ill, and it was so tender. I mean, tender to see that sweetness in that relationship, because people don't realize when they see somebody like Phyllis Schlafly, who's always in front of the cameras, who's always very strong and has to be to do the things that she has accomplished, and there's this wonderful tender side of her. The way she treated all of us who worked with her, all of her volunteers, she treated with utmost respect. But the most wonderful thing that I saw was seeing the relationship. The tender relationship between your mother and your father when your father was so ill. That was the best lifelong lesson I learned from Phyllis Schlafly, was the tender person that she was.
Well, she took her vows seriously, and her marriage vows she completely lived, to have and to hold, and in sickness and in health, and she fully lived those vows.
Yeah, I can hardly talk now because it's so emotional. But anyway, we have some more to talk about. We have Marianne on the line. This is Marianne Christensen, who is our executive director in Eagle Forum. She is called in to talk with us for a few minutes and to talk more about our convention on Saturday. Thank you, Marianne, for joining us today.
Well, Marianne, do you have power back?
Oh, yeah, Marianne. Tell her about did you hear what Ann said? She wanted to know if you had your power back.
Yeah, we do have it back. Good thing. It was hunkering down by the wood-burning stove for hours and hours yesterday and last night. So I have some grandkids living in our basement apartment right now, and they thought it was the best thing ever. It was camping out at home.
no electricity.
Camping out,
every night.
Oh, that is great. But what a testimony it is to having. You had that wood stove, you had the wood, you had other things to give you light. And as you said, I talked with Marianne this morning. I called and said, "Do you have your power back yet?" And she talked about how they actually cooked on that wood burning stove last night, so they had a hot meal and happy grandchildren.
Yes, very happy. And my daughter said, this is a great lesson in personal preparedness. How prepared are we? So, and it was a good lesson for the boys, and they had a good time. So,
well, and her daughter that's living there with her has two little brand new babies, little twins. So on with all of that, they had these little babies and just gathered as a family, kept each other warm.
Yeah, the babies didn't like it very much because it was just dark. We didn't have very much light. They thought it was bedtime, so they got cranky early. But they did okay.
Oh, that's an amazing story. So, Marianne, I asked Marianne to join us with us, Ann, and talk about what we're going to be doing on Saturday with the convention.
I am really excited about it. I'm excited that we're going to have a tribute to your mom, Ann. Just a marvelous person, and she influenced so many people and influenced public policy in the nation and in all of the individual states, there's not very many people who you can say that about. And so with her passing this year, it's so appropriate that we're doing a tribute to her, and we're so happy that you can come and help do that.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Honor your mom.
I have to tell a really quick story, and then I'm going to turn this over to Marianne, you and Ann, to talk more about that. I had an experience many years ago, and I can't remember, Marianne, if you were with us yet, but I know Karen Clark was, and others that old-time people that were with us, and I was asked, there was a comprehensive sex education bill up that a Democrat was carrying, and I was asked to come to the Women's Legislative Exchange, which is a large women's group, and most of those women in that group knew Phyllis Schlafly, knew who she was, knew only about me because they know Phyllis Schlafly. Some who agree with her, most of them didn't agree with us, but they asked me to be to come and do a little debate with the sponsor of the bill. That he was a Democrat. And, of course, I was there opposing. And I asked him, I said, well, can I bring a friend? And they said, sure, yeah, bring it. If you want to bring somebody, that's just fine. I asked that question because it just happened that particular day, God is so good, that your mother was coming into town. Phyllis was coming into town. She was going to be speaking on a university campus, but she came and spent some time with us first. But they didn't. I mean, I actually went to the meeting. It was during the lunch break. It was during the legislative session, and was starting up the meeting, waiting for my friend to come. Karen Clark had gone to the airport to pick her up and bring her out, and then all of a sudden the door opened the back, and I says, "Oh, good, my friend is here." And your mother walked to the front of the room. Those people in that room, I mean, their mouth just dropped open. And this legislator had already complained at the beginning that how it wasn't fair that he had to be up against me. He says, you just know so much and you're always so articulate. Well, I might know a few things and I might be a little articulate, but I don't compare to Phyllis Schlafly. And Phyllis walked in and came to the front of that room, and everybody, you could hear the sighs and everything else, and I never said another word. I just sat back and let them go for it. It was one of the most amazing experiences in my life. I learned a lot, but I loved that moment in time when Phyllis Schlafly walked into the room.
Well, that's a great story, Gayle. Like you had a magic trick there. You pulled the bunny out of the hat.
It was. And you know, what would be the chances that very day she came to Utah? But she did, and it was wonderful. And we had lots of laughs over that. And she was, I mean, there was that poor little man. He never said another word. He just sat and stared at her. And she taught lessons that I would have never gotten to that day because, first of all, I wouldn't have gotten the attention that she was getting. I mean, they were listening to her. And secondly, she had knowledge beyond anything that I had on that subject. I learned so much. Anyway, let's talk about the rest of the convention.
Well, Marianne, tell us the plan.
I'm excited to have our keynote speaker coming, John Eidsmoe. I've met him before and heard him speak a few times. He's just an amazing person. He's one of those people that you find out about all of his accomplishments and you think, oh my goodness, how could someone do all of that in 3 lifetimes, let alone just one? And he's still going strong. He's just one of those people. He's so dynamic and so warm and friendly and such a good speaker.
Well, and, you know, I know John Eidsmoe, and this is the third time we've had him because of Phyllis again. Phyllis brought him to Eagle Council many times, and I'm sure, you know, Ann knows John, and Uni Smith is a good friend because he's from Alabama. And so that's why we know him, is because of National Eagle Forum that introduced us to John Eidsmoe.
That's right. So he's a keynote speaker, and he's going to really set the tone for the day. He's talking about religious liberty, which is so important. It is under attack from so many fronts. And a lot of people don't realize. They think it's just one of those things we're guaranteed in the Constitution and it's safe and sound, and that is not the case at all. So a really pertinent subject for him, and I don't know of anyone better to come and do that because he is actually participating on legal cases where religious liberty is at risk. We also have Tim Ballard coming. He's come a few times to our convention, and he's just an amazing person. This is the person who wrote the Covenant book, and his latest book is George Washington. Oh my goodness, my mind just went blank.
Washington hypothesis, which
hypothesis,
I'm now reading for the second time.
Yes, he wrote the Lincoln hypothesis and now the George Washington hypothesis, and all of his books have an underlying theme to them, and that is that God made a covenant with the people of this country, and as long as we live according to the covenant, he prospers us. And so the book about Lincoln and the book about England are about all the ways that they relied on the guidance of God to help them accomplish the things that they did. And anyone who's studied the Revolutionary War understands beyond a doubt that the United States, that the American colonies at that time could never have won without divine intervention. George Washington knew that, and he was constantly petitioning God for assistance. And so many marvelous stories in that book about how George Washington petitioned divine aid and how he got it. And
Marianne, when you're saying that, we wouldn't have been, none of this would have happened if it hadn't been for the fact that they relied upon God. But that's where we are today, and that was such amazing about Phyllis Schlafly, is she always relied on God. And Anne can tell you this. I mean, whenever we were together, wherever we went, whether it was just in D.C. or at Eagle Council or wherever, Phyllis always went to church. She would gather people and say, "I'm going to church. Who's coming with me?" And nothing happened until Phyllis got back from church. She was,
Right.
So I mean, really growing up, Anne, I'm sure that's what you experienced in terms of her belief in God.
And daily prayer. Don't ever miss out on the. She considered daily prayer to be essential. To life.
And that's just another one of the lessons that she taught us, and we watched her success because she used the same formula with her relationship with God that the founders had used.
Yes.
And where are we now? Look at our society. Look how the society that the founders so carefully sculpted out of a religious base. And look how much that religious base has been worn away. And look at where we are now. Look at how secular we're becoming.
Yeah.
Look
you know what? I hate to...
Even religious people are embracing the secularism of our society. We need God.
Yeah, Marianne...
But we did as much as George Washington needed him back then.
I just noticed the time. We need to tell people right now about how they can register to be to the convention on Saturday, and knowing that we've extended this. How do they do that? And we want to make sure everybody listening today takes advantage of that.
Well, the easiest way to register is to go to our website, and as Gayle said, we've extended the early bird price. It's $49 for the entire day, a beautiful catered lunch at the Radisson downtown. It's 215 West 2nd South, I think is, South Temple. 215 West South Temple is the address of the Radisson. You can go to our website and register with a credit card using our PayPal account. It's just UtahEagleForum.org. UtahEagleForum.org. When you get on that homepage, right at the top, there's a little bit about convention and a button that says Learn More. That'll take you to the registration page where you can just put in the names of the registrants and then give us your credit card information. You'll be on the list. You'll have that early bird price. That's the quickest way to do it. If you can't get online and use a credit card, you can send a check for $49 per person and send it to my address. It's 583 East Benbow Street, Benbow, in Murray, Utah, 84107. So 583 East Benbow, Benbow, Murray, Utah, 84107. And
Marianne,
if you can pop it in the mail today, I will have the check before convention, and then there won't be any question when you come to check in.
Okay, and I want to remind everybody that K-Talk Radio is a co-sponsor of our convention. And thank you for joining us today. It was so delightful to talk about your wonderful mother, Phyllis, that I love so much. And thank you, Marianne. And we'll see you all on Saturday at the convention.
I'm looking forward to seeing you, Ann.
Come join us at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites in Sandy for New Year's weekend. Conveniently located at 10680 Auto Mall Drive in Sandy, Utah.